Hey, this is Elisa. Welcome to day 3 of the Plant Power Challenge. And I'm really excited to be here with you again today. So just a little recap of what we've done so far. So we looked at, how to get started. And remember, my biggest tip for this change or any other change in your life is start small. It doesn't matter where you are compared to anybody else on your journey. And it doesn't matter where you're planning on going either. You don't have to make it that you're going to, completely change how you eat overnight. You might just start by adding in one new vegetable or trying one of these recipes that I'm going to share with you throughout the week. And just a reminder, if you want to get the recipes, if you want to get the workbook, make sure to sign up. And even if you've missed the first couple of calls, you'll still receive the recording so that way you can watch them, at your own, time frame, whatever works for you. So you can catch up and you haven't missed anything. You'll still get the workbook that has, the meal planner. And actually, one thing I didn't show you on Monday, I have a different food journal that I really love because it's more streamlined and it's got spaces for how you feel for each thing, or each time that you're eating. Now, do you have to fill that in every time? Heck no. But like, if you notice that you're feeling reactive about something, or maybe you're stressed out, you're upset, or maybe you're happy. Sometimes we eat because we're happy. We eat for all different kinds of emotions. That's a good way to start noticing what you're eating and why. And it doesn't all have to be vegetables. Like, you don't only have to write down your vegetables, write down everything that you're eating, because it can really help with awareness. And if, this challenge is more about being plant-based or plant-powered, but, if you're trying to lose weight or change how you're eating, sometimes just writing it down is going to, and when I say sometimes, I mean just about every single time, it's going to increase your awareness of what you're actually eating. Because sometimes it can be so easy to go, just taking, something off a plate or something, off of somebody else's plate, or, you grab something at work and you totally disregard it. But when you start to write things down, you get more awareness around what you're actually eating. And you might be eating more, or maybe not even just more, but things that you're not aware of. Because I'll talk to different people and they'll say, oh, I really eat a very healthy diet. And then they start to track it and they're noticing, this mouthful here of whatever, or a bag, handful of chips from the bag, or somebody offered you a donut at work, or, whatever it is. So I definitely recommend that you track it. I know it's sometimes not fun, but your body knows what's going on, whether or not you track it. So once you measure it, and there's a saying that which gets measured changes. So if you're trying to make a change in your life, that's the easiest place to start, is by, just, keeping a journal. And whether it's, a journal that I send you, or you just get a notebook and write it down, or you're using an app on your phone, you're, increasing the likelihood that you're going to make a change. Just because sometimes it can be, I've had it where when I've kept a food journal where I didn't really want to write down a certain thing, and it was more about, it had me pre-thinking, do I want to eat that? Is it worth it to me to have to write it down, to know what it's going to do to my body? Or, maybe I'm going to have to work out a little harder to make the change. So a little bit, off the plant powered, it's more, whole of everything that you eat. But in reality, that's what we're talking about. And we're not just talking about eating fruits and vegetables, which, is a big bulk of this, but it's about eating more whole foods, which again, plants and vegetables, or fruits and vegetables, fit into that super. But the idea is getting away from the processed food, getting away from the preservatives, getting away from anything that can stay on your kitchen shelf for months. If something can stay in your fridge or on your in your pantry for months or years, that it's got something in it to make it stay from going, from spoiling. So what's it going to do to your body? You're putting those same chemicals into your body, and just, it's just some food for thought, just something to think about. Now, today we're going to talk about dairy swaps. That is the biggest one that I hear from people. And actually, even for my journey, that was the last thing that I gave up before I went completely plant-based. I was vegetarian for a short time. And during that time, I ate a lot of dairy. I was eating cottage cheese, yogurt. I was eating a lot of those two things. And I was eating egg whites. But I was still at that point, vegetarian, because I was eating mainly plants besides those two things. Now, for some people, that might be their, where they want to hang out. Maybe you want to stick at having the dairy, and that's cool too. But for a lot of people, dairy causes a lot of digestive problems. And it's because, if you think about it, we're the only species that drinks another species' milk. All the other species, they drink their own milk. So our bodies were not made to drink cow milk or even other kinds of milks. And you might notice that. So maybe when you have certain things like milk or ice cream or cheese, afterwards you feel a little bloated, a little gassy, your stomach is upset, and maybe you just think it's something you have to deal with. Now, the other thing with dairy, especially cheese, is that there's casein in the cheese, and it can be very addictive. And that's a protein in the milk. And during digestion, casein releases these opiates. So, if you think about opiates, what that, reminds you of is, opium addiction. And that's a really true and actual thing of why you might be having a hard time giving up cheese. And the casomorphins, which comes from the casein, they release or trigger the dopamine and trigger that addictive element. So that could be why cheese is very hard for a lot of people to give up. But you can make substitutions, and I found some really good ones. And the secret for me is using cashews. So you get raw cashews. You don't get the cashews that, have been roasted and salted that, might be tasty to nibble on. You get the raw cashews. And really simply by soaking them and then putting them in a blender with some other things, you can create all different kinds of cheeses. You can create cashew cheese, which, you can still have your nachos. You can use them in the tacos we talked about yesterday. Another thing that I use a lot is just a regular cashew cream, which can be used for soups. So if you want to make like a creamy potato soup or a creamy broccoli, or even a tomato soup that has some like a cream to it, you could use the cashews. Now, some soup recipes, you might have coconut milk as the thing that's used as the thickener, as the cream, and that's really an option too. But as far as, I mentioned with the cashews and the different ways that you can make cheeses, you could make a nacho cheese, you can make a ricotta cheese, a ricotta cheese, and you could use that for lasagna. So we've done that for lasagna. We've done that for lasagna soup. There's a lot of ways to do that. You can make a mac and cheese, which it was really amazing. And sometimes I'll even make, a total twist on mac and cheese where it's neither mac nor cheese, but it's cauliflower in place of the noodles, in place of the pasta, and then the nacho cheese and when I'm saying cheese here, it's with a Z. So, but make the cheese with the cashews and nutritional yeast. So nutritional yeast is also one of the magic things here in a lot of these cheeses, because nutritional yeast adds a little cheesy flavor. It's got a kind of nutty, cheesy flavor, and it's usually fortified with B12. So that's one of the things that if you go more plant-based, you need to watch out for. You need to make sure you get B12. Now, B12 we could talk about for a while, but I'm just going to leave it at that. So that's a good way to get B12. Oh, and I did mention the lasagna. So I have lots of secrets for lasagna, and another version that I make does use tofu. So it's actually a slow cooker lasagna, which is really good. It's, you put it in the slow cooker and let it do its thing all day, and it comes out so chewy, gooey, ooey, like the cheese is amazing, but it's not the cashews. It's tofu. It's a blend of silken tofu and extra firm tofu, and you mix it together. You add some spinach, you add, a couple other seasonings like you would with a regular lasagna. You layer the noodles, you layer your sauce and the tofu cheese, and just the way it melds together, it is fantastic. Other things that you can swap, there are ways to make your own homemade yogurt, or you could buy a store-bought yogurt. There's coconut yogurts, there's other different types of yogurts. So trying to go more plant-based, it doesn't mean that you have to give up these things. There are variations on these things. And you can even find, like, if you wanted a frozen pizza, there are frozen pizzas with like Daiya cheese and things like that. So Daiya is one of the name brand cheeses. But again, with anything you buy that is store-bought, especially since we're trying, one of our goals might be to have more whole foods, read the label. Make sure that anything in there is something that you want to put in your body. And one thing that I do when I read a label, if something, doesn't sound familiar, or, maybe it's a word I've seen a bunch of times, but I have no clue really what it does for me or what it does, possibly, I'll, look it up, go to the internet, do a search, and, do your due diligence, because, you get this one body and you want to fuel it well. So we talked about several things dairy wise, and some of my other favorite dairy substitutes that might use these things are things like chia pudding. You can use, if when we were kids, depending upon how old you are, you might have seen the chia pets, and the chia, it's the same chia. You can actually use it for lots of things, but if you soak it and add, lots of other flavorings, you can add fruit, you can add coconut milk, different things to it, you get a nice chia pudding. Because what happens is chia and liquid, you basically need a ratio of 1 to 9. So 1 part chia to 9 parts of liquid. So it could be that water or, coconut milk or another plant-based milk, and adding in the fruit, maybe adding in some coconut. It plumps up and it's, makes a really delightful pudding. But if we're talking about pudding, my absolute favorite, I can't speak today. My absolute favorite pudding is chocolate avocado pudding. So this one was introduced to me by a fellow coach, and I thought it was awesome. It came to me at a perfect time because I had a bunch of extra avocados and I didn't know what to do with them. You can use, the recipe generally calls for 1 avocado and it makes, 1 serving, but of course you want to make servings for other people too. But you use avocados, you use cacao powder, just a few other simple things, and you mix it up and it becomes the most delightful creamy chocolate pudding. So I know maybe 1 or 2 people in my circle who don't like chocolate, who may not like this, but even my husband loves this. And at one time he told me he did not like chocolate, and now he totally adores it. And since it's coming to summertime, what would summer be without ice cream? And a lot of times people think, oh, I don't want to give up ice cream, even if they get the bloat, even if they get the pain. So you might think, okay, it's worth it to have an upset stomach to have some ice cream. There are lots of different ways to make a plant-based ice cream, and you can make it for yourself. Again, you could buy store-bought versions, but you could make a version either using coconut milk. So that's one option, and tons of recipes out there for it. And then my favorite, and you have to like bananas for this, is bananas. So you freeze some bananas and you could have it just like that. You tend to blend it up. I put it in a blender. There are also things called yonanas that you can use. It's a more specialized frozen treat maker, but you can just use your regular blender and then add in different things, get creative. So one of my favorites is a chocolate chunky monkey, and it's the bananas, it's cacao, it's nuts, and all different kinds of good things like that. You can add in a strawberry, or make a strawberry version. You can make a peachy version, and you just freeze all the fruits, put them in the blender. You can add, sometimes you might need to add a little bit of plant milk to make it a little smoother if you want. It depends if you want a harder ice cream or maybe a soft serve-ish ice cream. And again, if you want, you can call it nice cream if that is important to you, if you want to make the distinction that it's plant-based. And, so these are all different kinds of things that you can make, getting creative with other things like the cashews or coconut milk or even tofu. 2 other things that I almost forgot to mention to you, I make pretty much year round. And one of them is ranch dressing. So if you want to have a dip for your veggies, or you want ranch dressing for your salad, so you can make a ranch dressing. And I use that ranch, I doctor it for all different kinds of meals. And then another is Caesar salad dressing. So I think the big thing that I'm trying to express right now is that you don't have to give up these things. You can have these foods, you can have all these things that you're used to and still go more plant-based, still feel better about what you're putting into your body, not worrying about your cholesterol going up, or, how am I going to help my cholesterol go down? And for a lot of these things, you can make them at home. So when you make them at home, you control exactly what goes in them. You're putting your heart and your love into them. So those are my dairy swaps for the day. Tomorrow, we're going to look at juices, smoothies, and shakes. And I just wanted to remind you guys that there is a drawing at the end of this 5-day plant powered challenge. So please comment below, maybe a tip or an aha, something that you are taking away with you, or maybe a suggestion for the rest of us. And if you have any questions, comment or send me a message as well. Thank you. Thank you so much for being here. And again, if you like what you're hearing and you want to learn more, maybe find out other ways that you could work with me, send me a message and we can set up a time to talk. So happy Wednesday. Enjoy this beautiful day, and I will see you tomorrow. Bye.